Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to episode 25.
25.
Our anniversary.
Anniversary.
We've been doing this for a year.
We made it.
Actually, we have, and that's pretty incredible.
It's so incredible.
Yeah. So we hope that those of you who've been with us for a year will enjoy. We're going to reminisce. We're going to talk a little bit about what this whole experience has been like for us. So enjoy.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Yes. We're so excited. We just don't know what to do. So this has been a full year of Witchy Wit.
One full year.
One full year. And I have to say this, I think I mentioned this a couple of times before to you, that I'd gone to a podcast summit, and one of the speakers talked about the fact that the majority of podcasts do not make it past the 4th episode. Isn't that amazing?
Well, we had 24 in our first season.
So we have done it. I think, first of all, I'm just so excited that this idea that you came up with last year about this time, a little bit earlier, and that we've done it.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so excited.
Too.
And to all our listeners, if you've been with us for the year, we're so glad you're still here. And if you're new, I think this is a great podcast episode to jump in on, because we'll talk about a lot of things from the past year, and you'll get a taste of a lot of the things that we've done over the past year.
Exactly. And then you might find that your curiosity is kind of piqued, and you might go back and listen to that episode. Or not. Whichever.
I think so, because I think they're really interesting.
Oh, okay. We do too. I do too. So let's talk a little bit about, a year ago this time. And why don't you start with telling us, what you were thinking?
Yeah. So I have a favorite podcast, and I really enjoyed listening to it. And I found myself thinking about what I would do if I was on the podcast and the things I would want to talk about. And then that led me to thinking about things that I really enjoy talking about and conversations I've enjoyed. And then that led me to thinking about all of the plane trips that you and I would take.
Yes.
When we would do our apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just for those of you who don't know, we would fly to Portland once a month for a weekend session. And first of all, that was incredible. But what was so much fun for me was the travel, because we would fly out of San Antonio. There's no easy way to get to Portland. I mean, it's at least 2 flights, and sometimes it turned out to be 3. And we'd fly to Houston or wherever, and then into Portland. And those trips were just filled with a lot of memorable conversation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we were doing a pre-assisting apprenticeship,
yeah.
So it was memorable in that way. But also, just being with you was really memorable, and I loved our conversations and how we shared this witchy center, like nougat, ooey gooey yummy candy center of witchiness. Yeah. But we just had so much difference in what we brought to it, and you would say things that would just hit me out of the blue, and it would crack me up, and then I would say things, and we would just laugh, and then I noticed that thinking about these things, I got scared, and that is my cue. When I get scared about doing something, that's my cue to know that there's a certain type of scared that I get, and that's my cue to know that this is a growing edge. And so I thought about it for the whole summer, and I was like, oh, I'll call her later. Oh, I'll call her and ask her later. Oh, I'll call and ask her later. And then finally, it was getting towards the end of the summer, and I was driving on this highway that loops around San Antonio, and I just pulled off into the closest HEB parking lot I could find, which is our grocery store, and I called you out of nowhere.
Well, and I do remember that. I think you just said, oh, I'd like to talk to you Dun, dun, dun. When people say that, it's usually not a good thing,
Right.
because rarely do people like want to set aside time to talk. And I don't know. Did you say anything about the podcast when we were talking about?
I did. I asked you if you had
Okay.
time to talk, and then I told
Oh,
you
right. Mm-hmm.
this is about what I said to you. I was wondering if you might be interested in talking about considering the fact that we might sometime look into the possibility of doing a podcast. That's like basically what I said.
And I remember thinking, well, hell, why not? I couldn't think of when you said that, it just seemed like, oh, well, why haven't we done this before? It really seemed.
Mm-hmm.
I had really because of the pandemic, I had been listening to a lot of podcasts too, that I didn't normally do, and I hadn't thought so much about me doing one. But I just thought it would be kind of neat to be able to, bring something else to the party. And then when you said that, I thought, well, sure, why not? And so I think we started exploring it pretty soon after that conversation. Yeah,
we did, because that would have been about the end of July, and our first episode was in September. So to non-podcast people, that might sound like a bit of time, but the fact that we knew nothing about podcasting.
I mean, what?
Literally nothing.
Nothing except how to listen to one,
right? Well, we knew how to do that. So we learned as we went.
Yeah, we did. And I think what helps is that we both like to explore and research and do things like that. So that helped a lot because maybe with two different people it might have been a little bit longer or shorter, who knows, but I found the process of actually getting us up and going really exciting.
It was really fun.
And I found there have been some moments where I distinctly remember the music episode, trying to get all of that stuff edited, but where it's been a little frustrating. But it's been such a joy to do this over the past year.
It really has. And I'm really looking forward to this episode talking with you about all of the joys that we've had.
Me too.
I did want to say, though, that we had no idea what we were doing. Like, we didn't understand about like how to get a hosting platform for us. We had to figure out music. We had to figure out what is the intent of our episode or of our podcast? What is the name of our podcast? And I want to paint a picture for everyone. This is peak pandemic.
Right.
So we met on your front yard.
My front lawn. Yes.
2 lawn chairs.
Yes, 2 lawn chairs out in the South Texas summer evening. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was fun. It was fun, and exploring it. I think a lot of it was just exploring it with a congenial person. See, I'm convinced that this would not have been as much fun if I had done this with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which I think is the whole point of the podcast. That we love being together.
Yes, indeed.
And I think one other thing that people might not know is, along from us figuring out how to do the podcast, bit by bit, every single thing, we didn't even know how to get it on Spotify or Pandora. We didn't know any of that. That we also had to do this all by ourselves financially too.
That's right.
So
exactly.
I wanted to say how grateful I am that you were willing to invest the money in this with me so that we could make this project together.
Oh yeah. So to kind of cite Leilani, we pay to do this.
We pay to do this. That's how much we like it.
Yeah, it's not huge amounts of money, but still, it's a labor of love. It's I think we're going to hear in a moment a little bit about impact. But for me, a lot of the impact is just us getting together and kind of figuring out what we're going to talk about, and then maybe going by the script and maybe not, but just recreating those conversations. And so even though it may cost a little money for us, but we do really appreciate our Patreon patrons. So those of you who have been contributing to the podcast, thank you so much.
We do really appreciate it. Also, you do get special bonus features over there. You get special witchy reaction videos or audio where we react to the episodes and we process after we debrief.
Yes, that's right. For those of you who are not yet Patreon patrons and might be interested in that.
head on over there. There's some that are free, so you don't have to be a patron to see, but it'll give you a taste of what it is like to be a patron.
Yes, indeed.
So one of the things I really wanted to do was look at some data.
Okay.
Because I love data. As much as
I
I am an artist and a movement person, I love data.
You do.
Data
I have
is
to say.
sexy. Okay, but here's the big thing. I just wanted to get your reaction to this data because I look at it frequently.
Okay.
So our first episode was September 25th, 2020. That was the date it was published.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was, this project started though over the previous summer.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to tell you, I'm so excited. This has been something I've been watching as our 1 year anniversary has approached.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to share with you the good news that we have over 3,000 downloads now.
I'm trying to think of a nice word. Okay, fuck it. No,
Yeah.
shit.
We did.
3,000?
We crossed 3,000 this month.
Yay!
Yeah.
And if this were like a huge podcast or whatever, that may not be a lot, but for us, that's
Right.
huge.
For two witches hanging out down in Texas.
That's right. In my craft room.
Right.
That's huge.
It is. So I'm really proud of that.
3,000. Wow. Do you know when we hit that by any chance?
I do. We hit it yesterday.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How timely.
I know. I was watching it. I'm like watching the numbers tick.
You were you really?
I was. But I didn't want to say anything to anyone because I didn't want anyone to just random downloads to alter the numbers. But I'm like watching it for the past week. I'm like, will we get there by the 1 year? And we did. So I
love it.
I also wanted to share with our listeners. I thought this was interesting. Our top episodes. Our number one episode is episode number 1, Living Authentic Lives. I think that's probably because people want to go back and hear where we started.
Then that makes sense. Yeah.
Then our other top episodes are What is Witchiness? Episode 2. And I think you would like this. The number 3 most downloaded episode is Music.
Yeah, of course.
There's blood on that episode.
I feel there's some vindication, right? That all of those hours just trying to figure out how to make this stupid sound work is worth it because people enjoyed it, or at least they downloaded it.
We don't have an editor. The team is us.
Well,
you are the editor.
I'm scary, isn't it?
Right. So all of the editing is done by Kimberlyn. So
on my laptop.
After you work a 9 to 5.
After I work, yeah. Well, I wish you were 9 to 5.
I know,
But anyway.
it would be nice. Teaching is 9, but teaching is not 9 to 5. Okay, then our next most downloaded is Coming Out of the Broom Closet.
Okay.
Which I think is fun.
Yes.
And that's where we talked about coming out as witches. And then to round out the top 5, Samhain is our number 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That is so good to know. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Samhain.
So neat, right?
Wow. Yeah. Oh, but I'm so glad that music made it in there. Wow. And I keep coming back to this. And
3,000.
Yeah.
Yay. So here's some, this is the last chunk of the data I wanted to share. This is super interesting for me. In North America, I wrote down, so 93% of our listeners come from North America. I wrote down the top 10 cities.
Okay. Cool.
Which I think is just interesting. San Antonio.
Which makes sense.
Obviously. Yeah. Shout out to our circle.
Woo-hoo!
Thank you for listening. Okay, here's the number 2 one is where things start getting interesting. Columbus, Ohio. I have this belief that there's a secret coven of witches in Columbus, Ohio that is listening. Because the number 4 location is Hogue, Ohio, which is in Columbus.
Whoa.
So they're on there twice. If you are from Columbus/Hogue, please reach out to us and let us know because I have this image that there's this coven that listens to us.
Yeah. I'm hoping.
Right?
Yeah. Or someone who is, they're just kind of figuring out what's all this about. And it's like, oh yeah. And then they're telling their friends.
I think that there's a group. I love it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Then we have Dallas, Houston, Chicago, Austin, Lake Stevens, Washington, Centennial, Colorado, Charlotte, North Carolina. Those are our main ones.
Shout outs to all of those cities.
Thank you.
Wow. And I wish I knew what the connection was, but wow, excellent. Yay. Well, I mean, besides the fact that they listen to podcasts, right?
But then here's the last thing that gets even cooler. We're also outside of the U.S. So
Sweet.
The top 10 countries that we're in are the U.S., the U.K., Germany, Australia, Japan,
Huh.
Canada, France, Ireland, Sweden, and Mexico.
Wow.
Those are the top 10 countries that were downloaded.
Amazing. That is so. And so there's a place where you go when you find this information. I take it.
Yes.
That when you're editing, you don't get a chance to see.
Yes.
Wow. We'll need to talk so I can. I'm not that I will, but it's just like that's fascinating.
I think so, and I think it really bridges into the next part that I was hoping we would chat about, which is like all this data, and it's cool that we reached 3,000. Really, what I think you and I keep coming back to is this idea that we started out just to make the podcast. We didn't really think much. We just knew that we would enjoy it as friends, but that the fact that it's changed us, it's changed me, and the fact that I may be making an impact out there, helping somebody somehow, or someone smiling or thinking differently or has a question answered, just is something I did not consider, and that is just one of the most impactful things for me.
I totally agree. It's so funny when you asked if I wanted to do this, I thought of all of the front matter. I thought of what we were going to do and what we were going to say, and and then getting it out there. And I don't know if I thought about who would be listening. We did we did on a certain level, but that I didn't realize that what we do. I don't want to say it's not unimportant, but I mean what we do is only such a part of it. It's just like it's literally the tip of the iceberg, because as we see from the data, that people are listening to us. But one of the things I have learned through dealing with music is that when someone is listening to something, it's not necessarily about what they're listening to. It's also what they're bringing to the experience. And so what I think is fascinating about those numbers and fascinating about what we do is that people get something out of it. And I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed when people tell me, people I don't expect to have listened to it. They must have gotten it through Facebook or whatever. Tell me that they listened to an episode.
Yeah.
And it's just and often it's people I wouldn't have expected to be interested in Witchy Wit at all, and they've listened to it, particularly when they say, "Oh yeah, I've listened to it, since for a couple of months." Really?
You say what?
Yes. Yeah. So I find that is so heartening to hear. It just it does me so good. It's such good to hear stuff like that.
The messages we've gotten on social media like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok have really helped me feel like podcasting can kind of start to feel like screaming into a void,
Yeah.
We just like put it out there, but then whenever somebody says something back, which I think is why the data is nice. It's like, oh, people do hear it, and if they're continuing to listen, then they must be engaging with it somehow. But then we get those messages back, and I think, oh my gosh, like this, I feel so lucky that they enjoyed it and they engaged with it, and now they're reaching out back to me.
Right.
Like, then it becomes this reciprocal thing, which is where the energy for me comes from.
Yes. It's not just being seen or being heard, but also like you said, very circular, and it feeds us for the next episode, which then it just keeps going around and around. I think, yeah, that's really important.
It does feel really good, especially because we are doing this in our spare time after we work
a full day,
full days. So like we're not sitting on a podcasting throne, sending stuff off to an editor. Like we're doing this because we love it.
Yeah, exactly. And there was something you were saying about I know what I was going to ask. We're on TikTok?
Oh yeah, I just kind of slid that in there. That's new. We're on TikTok now.
Oh my God.
My little sister is on TikTok, and she was talking to me about it, and I thought, I think that might be good. So I'm not personally on TikTok. Like there is no Leilani account, but there is a Witchy Wit account.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll find TikTok, and so okay. Wow, we're just so totally 2021.
We're so hip. We're with it.
I'm so glad you're like pulling my old bones into TikTokville.
Here's another thing I thought was interesting over the past year. People that I'm close to who aren't witches, or maybe they are, but have come to me and listened to the podcast and then shared with me that they didn't realize how big of a deal this was to me.
For you.
Not the podcast, but being a witch was for me. And it made me realize how compartmentalized I keep this part of me. And I know I shared in one of the episodes about, it was the magical name episode, I shared about how I had like my craft name, and then, you know, the name that I'm called at work, Miss Long, and then I had Leilani, which is, you know, normal life, and how I felt so compartmentalized. And then it made me realize that I think that is a lot of times part of being a witch, is that I can't really show up obviously that way, but it's been a really interesting call towards integrating.
For me too. I think a part of it for me was, who was I going to tell we were doing this, and the decision, basically, like, screw it. Just tell everybody, and then people who like it will like it, and people who disapprove will, maybe block me or something. I'm not sure. But this, I had been moving towards this over the past few years. But the podcast actually gave me the impetus to just kind of, I still don't feel totally integrated, where everyone knows everything about all of the different facets of me. But it's gotten me out of the fear of what would happen if I showed myself to, and this comes from our very first episode, right? What would happen if I showed part of me to someone that hadn't seen that part of me before. And so the podcast has helped me.
It's helped me too.
Yeah.
And I think it was extra special. I had an issue with somebody taking offense to my spirituality in my workplace, even though I wasn't out in my workplace. And I think holding that experience of what it felt like, and what it was like to go through that, how scary that was, along with this podcast, gave me strength.
Wow.
In that time period, along with the fact that the priestesses and the women of our circle gathered around me and did like a protection spell and all of that stuff, which was really, really powerful. But almost feeling like I'm not going to be quiet. This is my personal time. I'm going to say these things that are true and need to be spoken in the world. I'm going to stand with you and do that. And that turned a scary experience into an empowering one.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, the first of all, recognizing that so many people are there for you allowed you to then just kind of feel your feelings, knowing that people would support. But I would imagine it was still scary, even though it was an empowering experience. It was still a frightening one.
Super scary. Super duper scary.
But we love you. And it was about that time, if I'm remembering correctly, we were doing a lot of podcasts on emotions and grief and moving through things. And so I don't know if in a way if that was helpful, but I admired at that time, your strength and your courage and being able to talk about things regardless of what you're going through in terms of your personal life.
Thank you. And see, this is just an example of one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast with you. Just getting to sit with you and talk with you and have you reflect things back to me like that.
And you know what? I'm so glad you said that, because in a regular conversation, our conversations are, if we're talking about anything personal, it's usually like a few minutes before we're getting ready to do ritual, or getting ready to do this, or getting ready to do that. And so it's kind of squeezed in, and we don't get the chance to just sit and let things bubble up. It's usually, what does she need to know that happened to me in the past couple of weeks, right? So, yay! So
that's one of the reasons why I love on Patreon our Witchy Reaction, because then we did the episode, you've edited it, we listened to the final product, it goes out to the world, maybe we get some feedback from people on social media, and then you and I sit down and talk about it.
Yes.
And so I love that moment too, because then we don't have an agenda, we don't have a script, it's just you and I sitting down and processing how the episode went for us and how it was received.
Exactly.
And I love that.
And things that might have bubbled up since the episode because of the episode. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, like the time that you and I both got into confrontations with men after our societal expectations of women episode, and then you and I both had misogynist interactions.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
I mean, it was just like what, and we didn't know it. You and I are sitting there like, wait, that happened to me.
Yeah, and so actually the fun continues for us,
right?
in our witchy reactions.
Y'all just press stop, but we keep going. We keep experiencing. You move on to the next podcast. We're living the podcast.
I never thought of it that way, but that's true. That's really true. Why don't we? So we started talking a little bit about how the doing the work on this podcast has impacted us. Maybe let's talk a little bit more. So in terms of, I don't know, personally, would you care to?
I would. I think so. My number one takeaway so far is integration and allowing this part of me to show up more vibrantly instead of, walking into circle and I open up my witch box and then I pop out and I'm like, woohoo! And I dance around, I drum, I sing, we do ritual, and then I put it back in the box and maybe like carry the box with me, but just like keep it compartmentalized. So I think that's my number one big takeaway. But the other one is that it really helped me clarify the fact that you and I have done a lot of work with this, and that I think it's really cool to celebrate that.
Yes.
To celebrate the experiences that we've had. I'll talk about myself, but well, you have been there. I keep saying we because you've been there for a lot of it, for most of it. But just speaking for myself, the experiences that I've had, the teachers that I've studied under, the women, the priestesses that I have gotten to work with and learn from. Like, the learning doesn't stop just because I'm not in an apprenticeship. And you and I did one together, and then I did one with our group, and you were another mentor with me or for me. But the priestesses that I get to priestess beside continually teach me things.
Yes.
And it's through making this podcast I realized that this is another way that I can share that, so that maybe people who don't have access to this, what I think is a one-of-a-kind circle, and the
Oh, I agree. Yeah, totally.
then the training that I've gotten, and the mentorship that I've gotten, and the fact that you and I got to fly to Portland, and you and I fly to California to do this amazing work. So it hasn't made me feel like, it hasn't like made my ego big, but it's made me real. Like, it's not like, oh, I know so much. Like, that's not what I mean. But like, oh my gosh, I know so much, and I can share that.
Right.
Especially because I think it's hard to get that in a lot of places.
Right. Totally ditto. Ditto. I actually wrote ditto.
You did. She did.
Wrote
all
ditto.
Caps, ditto.
Yeah, ditto. For all of that, but I think what I have gotten singularly from this, and maybe you have this experience too, but one of the things that after I've articulated something that might have been, in my worldview, but I never really thought about it. But in our conversations, I've had to sit down and think about, okay, so this is my reaction, why, and kind of dig deep. And after doing that, because things are no longer fuzzy, I no longer have permission to do things that are inauthentic. And so now I put a bunch of stuff out there in the past year that I've talked about, and now I've got to walk what I've talked. And so what I have found is that it's an incredible responsibility, but it has helped me to step up, because now I kind of thought, in the back of my head, if I even gave it that much thought, it was kind of there, like an underpinning. But by actually articulating and saying, this is important to me, so what does that look like on the ground? And so it's just made me more aware. And I think it's helped me to, in some situations where I might have just let something slide because whatever. But now I've said to all 10 of you, whoever is out there, well, there's at least 10 countries, so there's more than
That's
that.
right.
But to all of you, I've said that this is important to me. So now I get a chance to live something that I've realized is important. I may not have realized it until we've had that conversation, but now that I have, now I get to do something about that. And it's scary, and sometimes I don't want to do it, but I said it's important. So now I've got to, I don't have to, but I now have the privilege of knowing clearly what's important to me.
I think that is part of why you and I intentionally chose episode 1 of our first season to be living authentic lives.
Yes.
That was where we wanted to start.
Were we that intentional about that?
You were. I was like, I don't know, let's talk about like cauldrons or something. And you're like, how about authenticity? And I was like, okay.
Sometimes I'm so much smarter than I think. Thanks and that's why I'm glad we had this episode.
That's right.
To remind me that I was smart at one point. I was intentional. Well, yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's one of the things that I've so loved about this is that our topics have not always been easy for us. I mean, it's I think our chemistry is really good and our rapport is really good and it's easy to have the conversation, but we often have to I often find that that I have to really sit down and not say what I thought was the answer, but really spend time figuring out what the real answer is. And so knowing that an episode's coming up is sometimes yucky in as much as, I have to do that hard work and I have to rethink who I thought I was. So there we go.
That's heavy in an awesome way, I think. Like awesome as in like the real meaning of awesome, the original meaning.
Filled with awe.
Yeah, filled with awe. Not like tubular, dude. Although it is cool. Little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out at you.
Okay, are we there? So, shall we talk about some of our, our favorite moments or, episode? We mentioned some episodes in passing, but some of our favorite episodes or favorite moments?
I would love to do that.
Okay. Would you like to start or shall I?
Well, one of my favorite ones, the first one that I wrote down was, so this one didn't even make it into the podcast itself. In fact, it impeded us from getting to the podcast.
Yes.
But it's on it's on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So if you go there, you can find it. But I made a short little video of the time that we tried to record, but we got interrupted 3 times.
Well, what's so funny is that you don't always record our recordings, right? Mm-hmm. And so I whatever reason you just had it going that time, and I remember it was the end of a long day. We were exhausted, and we tried to start this stupid recording. And we get to the same? I think we got to almost the same part every single time.
We did.
And something happened. The phone rang. This happened, and yeah, that's a personal favorite. Sometimes I just go and watch that a couple of times. When I'm just feeling a little blah and I need my spirits lifted a bit, I go watch that little video.
Me too. It cracks me up because we're so earnestly attempting to start welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, and then bam, your computer's bong, it needs to be charged, and then another time your phone rings, and then another time an alarm goes off, and just the reaction is what?
Dang it, we'll never do this. And I think we finally, when that third time happened, we said, okay, it's not meant to happen.
You did. You were like, okay, let's try this again later. You got it. We packed up.
That was the goddess sharing with us that this was not the right time.
It was the time to laugh and the time to let go.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Okay. That was a lot of fun. Along those same lines, one of my favorite is actually from our last episode, television. That's our last one, right? Our last episode. And this just kind of just shows our interaction, because one of the things about our relationship is that, am I old enough to be your mother? I'm old enough to be your mother. You are. Because your mother is younger than I am.
Yeah, because when we did the A Witch's Mom episode and she was here, she's slightly younger than you.
Yeah. So I'm old enough to be Leilani's mom, and so I'm of a different generation and a half, and so things that I take for granted are just totally beyond you. I mean, and then vice versa, right? So tubular dudes, okay, I'm sure that meant something.
It was a Ninja Turtles reference.
Right. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It was before. It was after I was the age to watch, and it was before I had students who would watch it. So so there you go.
Sure.
I'm sidetracked.
Oh, you were talking about the
television
episode.
Yes, and hopefully we'll get a chance to play this clip where this happened twice in the episode. One time near the beginning where I was talking about the television show Mission Impossible, and you said,
I thought that was a movie. That's a TV show?
It is, yes, exactly. So it is a movie with Tom Cruise, right? No.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is it Tom Cruise?
I don't know.
Okay, it's a movie, or a series of movies, actually.
Oh, yeah,
I think there's a couple.
There's like 19, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hyperbole.
Yeah. So there was a movie, but back in the a movie in the 90s when you would have watched it, but back in the 60s, it was a television show.
No clue.
No clue, of course, because you weren't born yet. So we talked about that, and then we went on into the episode, blah blah blah, and then I was actually talking about another show, and I was saying how it was very similar to the television show Mission Impossible, and Leilani said, again.
Well, I think it was Lost in Space.
No, it was. You don't do this! Are you fucking kidding me? It was Mission Impossible.
Oh, it was Mission Impossible?
Yes.
Oh,
and that's what happened then.
but I thought you talked about Lost in Space. Isn't that a TV show?
It is a TV show.
But I didn't know it was a TV show. Is it a movie too?
It's a movie too.
I didn't know it was a TV show. See, this is an example.
So we did. So I'll hopefully play that example so you get a chance to hear that. I loved it, and one of my personal favorites was Mission Impossible. Did you?
That was a show?
Oh yes, girl. Oh, okay. Well, again, two different perspectives.
Yes, different ages.
Oh my gosh!
So
yes.
Mission Impossible was a show?
Yes, it was. Now, but that's another show. It's kind of like Mission Impossible, very much like Mission Impossible, where they kind of they create these.
Was Mission Impossible a TV show?
Oh, don't start with me.
No, I'm serious. This is another show. Like it was a show. It wasn't just movies.
Okay, we just had this discussion like a half hour ago.
Was that Mission Impossible? That was a different show.
No, it's Mission Impossible.
Oh.
Oh, we might have to edit that out. I was like, are you fucking with me?
No! I thought there was it Mission Impossible? I guess it was Mission Impossible. Oh my gosh. Well, you said Lost in Space was a TV show, and I just thought that was a movie. So apparently that's a TV show.
Yeah, it's a TV show too.
Anyways, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
But Mission Impossible.
And then we had the same thing, like in a different episode. How do you say her last name?
Betty Grable?
Yeah, I don't even know who that is. But I was like, Betty White? Oh, that was in our Magical Names episode where I did that.
Yes. Yeah.
So there we go.
Mm-hmm. There are times when I remember, I think Betty, like in the 40s and 50s, and it could have been Betty Grable was an actress then. Okay, don't.
I know Betty White.
Okay. Yes, yeah, I like her a lot. But, so because we're two different witches with two different perspectives,
yes.
and don't we say ages?
We do.
Yes, there we go.
We do.
Okay, so race, blah 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 blah.
Okay, another thing that I'll offer one.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite episodes was when witch shit goes bad, and it was where we talked about when witch shit goes bad.
Yeah.
Whenever things don't go as expected.
That episode was so much fun because some of that stuff was not good when it happened, but but when you look back at it, it was super funny.
Yes, like when I hijack an entire episode and turn my maiden shield into a frisbee with a. Yeah.
Yeah, at the time.
Oh, so bad.
So
It's so embarrassing. Even now, I'm like, I can feel it in my face. It's so embarrassing.
But these things happen, and with perspective, with some time, we can see the humor, the humor in all things.
Yes. Particularly, I loved the story about when you were aspecting Yamaya when we were doing the retreat at the beach.
Oh yeah.
And you kept wandering into the ocean.
And people had to come in and shepherd me back.
Get you back. Get the guys back. She just wants to go in the ocean.
She's heading to Africa or something. We're not sure. But get her before she drowns.
Come back. Human body.
Yeah, because they don't understand that. They don't
No,
understand that.
it's
So
so
yes,
sacred.
that was a great one. Was that? Yeah, that was when shit goes bad.
That was when shit goes bad.
Okay. So here's my memory of what
Okay.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
We call the elements, we do all the things, we set the circle, and then we invoke Yamaya into you,
Mm-hmm.
and then clearly you're not there. You as in Kimberlyn is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the techniques we do, I don't know if you do it, is like we negotiate like what percentage.
Yeah.
What you're like. what percent, right? What percentage, like all like 80% you, 20% me. You know, am I like one person in an empty stadium and you're like down on the baseball diamond? Like, is that like that's how I kind of picture it? So then I remember looking over at your body and seeing that clearly, like, I don't think Kimberlyn is home. Like, it is
all Yamaya.
It is all Yamaya
all the time.
So we're like, right. It's like Yamaya radio, all Yamaya, all the time. And so I remember we're standing in a circle and we're doing some sort of magical work around this energy, and you're just circling our circle. You're just like circling. And
which was what I was supposed to do, right?
I think so. I think that's what we had planned. And then eventually you were going to like bless us or offer us some sort of wisdom. And I just remember like you're circling around the circle and your eyes are aglow and you're just like gushing energy and love. It's just really empowered. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where is she? What's going? And we're all like looking, you know, and I'm like, wait, because I'm the one like, I planned the ritual, so I like knew, and I like, wait, where is she? I had one eye on you and one eye on the ritual. I lost you, and then I turn around and I look, you're like walking off into the ocean.
And see, I don't remember. I mean, because obviously I'm aspecting. I don't remember any of this. So I take it I was retrieved. Did you call me back or did you just...
I did. I started yelling and you were not paying... Well, it's also the ocean, but you were not paying attention. But I'm sure Yamaya didn't want to hang out with us. She wanted to be in the ocean.
That's because that's her jam.
Duh, right?
Like, you honored me. It's like, okay, that was nice.
Cool.
Okay, no, yeah. Okay.
Y'all are great. Okay, ocean rules. So then I like run off and I get you and we grab you and we, you know, like gently guide you, like come be with us, and you like come back out. And then we start doing ritual again, and you're walking around us gazing in love. And then again, it happens again. I think it happened like at least 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What's it? You know, it's the tide.
It pulls you.
Yeah. Wow. And didn't we? Was it a full moon that night too?
It was.
Yeah.
It was
so it's
quite
like,
wonderful.
what did you expect?
Right.
And and this is not necessarily funny, but one of the things that I really appreciated in just kind of looking back at some of the episodes, trying to find some of my favorite parts. There, we were talking about books, and the thing that I thought fascinating was that how we read certain things, and people like to make it about what they say about us, but and in a way it kind of does. But I'm not, I think we were kind of working through because our book faves were so dramatically different. Right?
Super different. They could not be more different. You're like science fiction and fantasy, and I'm nonfiction.
Yeah, and Brene Brown.
Yes.
And yes. And I still am going to write you some Brene Brown fan fiction. So it's in my book. So I really, really enjoyed the book episode. And obviously, I haven't yet gotten to the point where I enjoy the music episode. I mean, I love everything that we have in it. It's still kind of painful. But I mean, I do really, really like that episode because it was, one of the things I think we do that we both love talking about is music. And I think that was one of the connections that we made like early on, years and years and years ago, was over music. So it was really fun discussing that with you.
Do you identify as a musicologist?
No. Yeah. Well,
because that's like where all your degrees are.
Yeah.
I just want to let people know that one more time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was gonna say,
like that's one of the things I love about talking about music with you, or being around music with you. And even whenever you get all nerdy about it, which I think is cool, but also when we're in ritual, like, so a little side story is that you taught me how to drum on a djembe. And so like when we do ritual drumming, you and I drum together, but for a long time, I would only stand behind you in ritual because I was too embarrassed. I didn't want you to see me drumming, but I wanted to watch you drum. And part of that was that I was watching your hand patterns. But another part was that what I see in you when I see you drum is I see all of that study that you did, academia, but and also the passion behind it. And then I see the priestess, and then I see the sacred coming through you. So,
thank you.
Aww.
And so it's so funny when you say that, because what I feel from you when I'm back there is I feel like your energy. And so one of the things that I think that struck me when I first met you, and this is we're kind of digressing, but anyway, was how much you love to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first time I noticed you was a drum circle. And I don't know if we were at someone's house or at our general meeting place, and we were drumming, and then you were like off in the corner kind of dancing.
Yeah.
And so I feel that, and because when you drum, you also, I mean, you're very embodied,
Mm-hmm.
and so you give off a lot of energy when you drum, like just physically, it's like this wall behind you. It's like, whoa. Well, or maybe not a wall, maybe more of an embracing Afghan.
Drumming to me feels like I'm dancing with my hands. I'm thinking we need to
sense.
do a drumming episode. Let's add that to the list.
Ooh, yes, I can so see that.
So I want to take it to a slightly different energy.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite moments was actually in our grief episode, which some people might find shocking, has actually been listened to. When we put it out there, I was like, it's probably going to get 2 downloads and that both of those are going to be me getting stuff for the audiograms that I post on social media. So
yeah,
it has been listened to.
It has been listened to.
Which I also think is really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
medicine. But that episode, that's one of my favorite moments of the year. It was one of my most vulnerable moments where I shared with you about the uncoupling, the divorce ritual that you and some other women from our circle did with me and another woman who was going through it at that time, and how it was in that moment of talking with you about that during the grief episode that I realized that you and I had never talked about that ritual. I had never talked about that ritual to anyone after the moment that it finished.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it was, because for me, it was so intensely personal to you that unless you said something to me, and then you didn't. So, and that was years ago. Wow.
It was years ago.
And so that was the first. Had you talked about it with someone else?
Mm-mm. I hadn't spoken about it to anyone. Like, I don't even think that the other woman that was going through the divorce at the same time as me, I don't even think we ever spoke about it.
Wow.
However much you're comfortable with sharing it, but you and some other women came over and did a ritual,
Right,
with myself and another sister of ours who was experiencing something similar. I don't remember a lot of it.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
I have images and I remember certain things, but what I do remember is weeping a lot. And I remember like breaking an object and like feeling a spiritual happening with that motion and burying it and just feel and like knowing that was significant. Like, and now I look back and I'm like, well, burying that's very like primitive and magical and meaningful. But in the moment, just like knowing like this is a thing, like this is important. And then the other thing that really made an impact on me was just having women witness and like choosing to be with me. Like I'm getting emotional, like thinking about it. Like in that moment when I was at my ugliest and my least controlled and my least pretty and in my flailing and in my like, I couldn't even tell you like which way was up, like I am just like at my least charismatic. In that moment, these people came together and they were not only with me, but they were like with me.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We've spent so much time together, but I don't know that we've ever actually talked about that ritual ever.
I don't think so either. Well, probably because I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to make you sad. And it was intensely private, right?
It was super
We
private.
were witnessing that, but we were really witnessing, individual pain.
Yeah.
And so how, it doesn't just come up at a cocktail party.
Right, that's true.
That time when you were digging in the dirt, howling to the moon, that it doesn't. So, but it comes up on the podcast apparently.
Right, apparently. We haven't really talked about it. Let's talk about it.
Right. Like out
so it can be stored indefinitely and talked about and listened to at people's leisure.
Well, if our pain can help one other person.
Right.
But in some ways, it's like the more you speak about the magic, the less power it holds. But I like to think that that was part of the reason why, but I also think we were just in such a process with it that by that time I was able to compose myself enough and have enough energy to put it in perspective into how impactful and how important it was. Mm-hmm. It was,
everybody had moved on.
I was like, a year later, I'd be like, hey, you remember that one thing we did a year ago that was really sad? I was crying in the rain,
weeping
and wailing in the rain, breaking an object and burying it in the ground and other things that y'all did. Do you remember that?
No.
It was really good. Thanks for that. Then we knuckle tap.
Dude, yeah, you're right. I just, that makes, to me, like that power and the fact that it was secret. I mean, secret not as in, something that you don't want people to know, but you had protected and become so personal. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I think that is a really awesome example of the power that this podcast has given to cultivating realizations like that.
And giving you permission to open up enough that you can realize that.
Right.
I mean, because some of it is just, you had probably never thought about. The fact that you probably thought about it a lot, but not thought about talking about it.
Not until in the moment while we were recording the episode where I was like, oh, wait, yeah. Oh.
Wow. Yeah. So one of the things that are always, I can't find the word, that are kind of emblematic, I'll put it that way, of our relationship is those wonderful moments when we find that while we're so different, that there's certain things that we're so alike.
Yes.
And one of those was during our societal expectation of women, and when we both shared that we just have this thing about not wearing a bra out in public.
Yes.
And so just hearing you say, I can't remember who articulated it first, but we were both like, really?
Right.
The same way. And then I think maybe two weeks later we did something and we were both not wearing a bra.
Yes. And then we came back and it was like, oh, you did that too? I did that too.
So I love those moments because as an older woman, it's always interesting to hear, to hear into the thoughts of someone who's of a different generation. Mm-hmm. and of certain things that I might have taken for granted. I thought you knew how you. I thought I knew what your thoughts on something would be, mm-hmm. and then to hear, no, you don't. You have no idea, or to hear sometimes they're very similar to mine, mm-hmm. right? And so that's one of the things I love about our conversation, and so that's a part of that episode that was like, oh yay.
I loved how we ended up unpacking this concept of wearing or not wearing a bra under the context of a societal expectation of a woman. And so a good chunk of that episode ended up being about that, but not just like us talking about that we do or we don't, mm-hmm. but like why,
mm-hmm.
and then in the context of our culture, in the context of misogyny,
yes.
in the context of patriarchy,
and what we, for whatever personal idiosyncratic reason, mm-hmm. we take to heart, regardless of the society or whatever. So yeah, I that was a really clear moment for me of sharing something and being able to get some stuff mirrored back to me.
On a funnier note, one of my favorite moments of you was whenever we were talking about, you talked about WAP, and your description was of the singers was that there were two cuties.
Because they're and this is, I guess, I feel like I'm as an older woman. They're just like. First of all, okay. So a little bit of serious part of this. I grew up in a time where, not chastity per se, but you were a good girl or mm-hmm. you were a slut. Mm-hmm. There was no middle ground, right? And so here are some women who are really open about their sexuality and using terms that I probably still can't use in public just yet because I haven't grown into that. and they're young, mm-hmm. and so these are. I was just looking at two women who are kind of emblematic of a lot of young women that I know, and you're among them, who didn't have to go through some of the garbage I went through. And so they can just totally bypass that and get to their fabulousness early. And they're just so young, and they just had those little, like, those mischievous expressions on their faces, and extremely well-developed bodies. I have to give them girls. Yes. The girls, and so and they're tipping about in their heels in their mansionette with all the running water. I just thought that they were so adorable. They're just so cute.
I have that as an audiogram on all of our social media so that people can find that, because it's one of my favorites. I go back and listen to that all the time.
I need to go and listen to that because I've forgotten about that. Thank you for reminding me about that.
So I am a first generation Mexican immigrant. I am a woman of color. I am a queer woman of color. I am a queer witch woman of color. And, you know, the list just goes on and on from there. So I feel so charged with a personal responsibility to show up in space fully as myself.
I don't think anybody ever accused me of being a witch or asked if I might be one during that time. There might have been occasions when there was the B word involved, but not so much the W one. But I did, people that knew me well knew that I had a spiritual path that was this kind of thing.
For the moment, this is it. Mm-hmm. And I don't really care if you like me or not. Mm-hmm. I like me.
What I find is I use the energy of the astrology to kind of direct or guide what all my magical work is going to be about. So it doesn't really change it, but it really deepens it.
One of the, to me, blessings, one of the many blessings about doing this podcast is that just as we're able to have these conversations with each other and just kind of sit and let it all hang out, we also had some really incredible witches or people who identify as witches or other pagan aspects coming and talking with us and also talking with you. And so we've actually recorded more so far. I think we've broadcast 4 episodes. 5? Yeah, 5.
4.
4.
Yeah, 4.
4.
Sorry, I was holding up 5 fingers. That's not her fault. We broadcast 4.
4 so far, and there's a few more in the pocket that'll be coming out soon, and they're all different. They're all fabulous, and they were all insightful in various different ways.
I listed them out so that we could look at them, and I was struck by the differences in them and the power that each of these people holds and brings to their magical practice, but in such different ways.
And but what's so funny about this is we didn't sit down and say, okay, we want one witch to kind of show this facet of witchiness. We want another one to do this and another. We just picked like people we liked.
Yeah, like she's cool.
let's get her.
Do you think she would come on? I hope so. Let me ask.
Exactly.
Hey, so, Roma, do you want to come play?
And she said, yes,
and she said yes.
Yes. And so so would you like to? You mentioned Roma.
Yes, so she, on our interview with her, she identified as a queer witch woman of color, and I loved the way she shared about her experiences and how it, even like down to why she calls herself a bruja.
Yes, and again, she's one of those young women that I just look at and I think our world's going to be so much better than the crap we're giving you, we're handing you right now. So. I love that the bright and shininess of that episode and her willingness to share. And then we had Maggie, who this older woman crone, and she does so much work out in organizing, but also teaching and continually learning in terms of social activism. And sharing some of that, in addition to just the witchy stuff that she does around us. I can never say this enough. She was the one who taught me that you can use coffee creamer.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a bonfire, throw that in there, and it just makes magic happen.
It does. And if you want to hear how it goes bad, listen to When Witchy Wit Goes Bad, and I talk about that.
Yeah, you sometimes a little bit's a good thing. This is where my more is better is not necessarily a good trip. Mm-hmm.
Then we had Setsuna on, and we interviewed her, and she describes herself as a hedge witch, among other things. And her sharing about, she shares about in this one really powerful moment where she doubted herself as being a witch, but then she experiences these sacred things, and then she knows in that moment that she is, and she can almost hear the goddess speaking to her.
One of the things that I have to say, I mean, I've known her for years and admired, loved working with her and admired her. But one of the things that she did for just listening, interviewing her, and then listening to that episode later as I edited, was I now, when I make my coffee or tea in the morning, I try to be more present. I try to, I wish I could do it doing other things too, but right now I'm, baby steps. But in the mornings now, I'm just so much more cognizant of the sacredness of that act. And I think that is something that I've just gleaned just from talking with her on the podcast.
Yeah, her kitchen witchery is just, it's just transformative for me, just to watch her.
Yes, just to watch her embody her space and inject it with her brand of magic.
Yeah, it feels so full.
Mm-hmm. And then the last interview that we broadcast was that of Kimberly, who is
Okay.
guardian, pagan, shaman, healer, astrologer. Is that everything?
Is the word feminist in there?
A feminist! Oh, you're okay. Dianic feminist!
Dianic feminist, there we go.
Dianic feminist,
yes.
That's right, thank you.
Yes, and I love that during the episode, Pagan Feminist Astrologer, she spells it all out and goes through it, and it is so awesome.
It really is. And one of the things, it's so, I mean, she was so articulate about her journey. And we learned. I think she actually said it on the episode that when we kind of told her we're gonna have you on, and just to let you know these are some of the questions that we're thinking about asking, just so people can kind of prepare and it's not this dead silence. And she actually journaled on them. She used them as journal prompts, and so she said it gave her the opportunity to dig a little deep and think about how she would answer those questions and what do they mean and what do they say about where she was and where she is.
I love the way she talked about the intersection between her spirituality and astrology. Mm-hmm. I thought they were one and the same, and she really schooled me on the fact that they are not.
We made all these assumptions, right?
Right.
And so it just goes to show how you can look at you're looking at someone's outsides, mm-hmm. right? And you don't know what's going on inside. And so that's one of the I think one of the brilliant things about our interviews is how much we've learned about those people just in that short time that we were interviewing them. I've known Maggie for almost 20 years, and I still learned so much about her in that interview.
So just in sitting here with you for this past amount of time, I'm just struck by how deeply moving and transforming this past year has been. And it has me thinking and wondering and dreaming about what will season 2, what will this next year bring?
I know. First of all, say that one more time.
I feel butterflies in my stomach saying it. I'm going to say it again. What season 2 will bring? We are so cool.
Well, I know. We can pat ourselves on the back because season 2. So first of all, we have so many. We just talking about this episode, we came up with 3, right? Mm-hmm. So we're far from fizzling out, mm-hmm. and that is so exciting to me. But one of the things that so I'm kind of setting an intention. This is, like I said, New Year. This is a new year for us,
it
right?
Is.
So the intention I'm setting for myself is to let these episodes be more helpful in me in my own personal development. Just like I said with the authenticity, or not just the authenticity episode, but just in terms of things that I've shared about things that I want for myself, and now I kind of have to do them. I'm hoping to have more of that for this upcoming year, and hoping that that some of what I say can help other people kind of come to those make those decisions and look into themselves a little bit.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And powerful, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Setsuna sent me a present months ago, and it's this beautiful little pentacle, and I kept part of the packaging had a card and it had a pentacle on it, and it said, "What would happen if you turned your magic all the way up?" I know. And so I'm like, oh, a present. And I open it up and it's like, boom, like,
damn.
And yeah, and the necklace is beautiful, and I have it, and I wear it when we do ritual, although we haven't done ritual in person for a long time. Sad tear. But as we move into season 2,
we're like cackling.
I keep coming back to that card that I have on my mirror, and I'm wondering what would happen if I turned my magic all the way up, because I noticed that part of the fear that I have is showing up not compartmentalized. And the gift of this podcast, one of them is that it helps me to stop doing that. It invites me to integrate. And so I was super nervous, but a friend of yours and mine posted about their podcast, their Witchy podcast. And I was sitting there on social media, and I was like looking at their post, and they were talking about, their podcast. And I like typed out the message, like, maybe our podcast could get together with your podcast. And this is 2 people that do this podcast that I really admire. So it was really scary because they could say no.
They could,
and then that could mean that I'm a bad person, or not really a witch, or
they don't like you,
or they don't like me, or they don't like me as a witch, or they don't think that what I, all of these thoughts came up, and I was like, wow, what would happen if I turned my witchiness all the way up? What would happen if I turned my magic all the way up? And so I typed out what would happen, like, hey, like maybe our podcast could get with your podcast and we could talk, and then we could do an episode together. And I like sent it, and then immediately was like, ah!
And you're blind. You're like, your magic is just blinding me with its awesomeness. Wow.
And then, so I admire both of them, and then they responded back, and they were like, "That sounds awesome." And I haven't shared that with you yet because I've been holding on to that to tell you.
No, that's so cool. And because you're dialing it up, you're literally dialing it up. Wow. And I'm watching it.
Thank you. It's this process. Invites me to be courageous and vulnerable, and to stand in my witchiness and my power in that way, and that's scary. I'll do it fine in my own room or around people I love. Yeah. But doing it, in more than 10 countries with 3,000 downloads is a call to be courageous. So
you're excavating your essence, and then what are we gonna do with it? You've got to let it just be shiny and let it do what it's gonna do. And that's scary, right?
See, even in this moment, I feel so seen by you. I love you so much. I love this process. How can I hug you? I love this process so much.
We're hugging. Sorry.
I'm getting all teary-eyed.
Well, this season has been wonderful. This season has been wonderful. And our upcoming season is going to be even better, we hope. No, we trust. It will be even better. It will be even better. And we thank you so much for joining us.
Even more rock-handed and vulnerable.
Even more rock-handed, yes, exactly.
So after talking in this episode about all the hard work that we've done for season 1 and the hard work that we're going to do for season 2, we thought we'd read a poem by one of our favorite poets that we've referenced on the show before. Her name is Felicie Millay, and she is a phenomenal poet. Her book is Virago, and which is another special type for you and I in our circle. But we read her poem on episode 2, What is Witchiness? And it was just a really powerful poem. And we're going to share this one. We're only going to read a few stanzas, and it's from her poem called Hard Work. I am hard work. You are right.
But I never pretended to be anything less. And you boarded this boat knowing full well it would demand work. And if you wanted an easy sail where you could skirt around truth and be met with resigned, blind compliance, you're on the wrong ship. You know that. I know you know that. We've had this discussion before.
I pack up my depth, fold it neatly between my ribs, origami myself back into a consumable package, into politicisms and gratifying nods and smiles, into unimposing, into unthreatening, into pastel.
And you wonder where I have gone.
And you reach out for me, question, why am I holding back from you? Tell me there in distance, and there is a void.
But you see, you don't get my depths without hard work. You don't get my core without being prepared to dig into yourself. You don't get to call me labor with distaste, frustration in your mouth. Reduce me to unnecessary hard work. You don't get to do that and still get an entitlement to my depths.
I love you, and I am fucking hard work, and I'm proud of both of those things.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!